Rewiring the anxious brain. Hello, welcome to Sobriety Bestie. I am Kirsten, and let's jump right in. So first off the bat, I want to say it is possible to have more freedom when it comes to anxiety. Wherever you're at in your journey with anxiety, there is a lot more freedom available for you. 100% can guarantee that. I don't know how much freedom is available, but we're going to discuss right now how to get into that. So basically, when we have an anxious brain, when we experience a lot of anxiety, or maybe we've been diagnosed with anxiety disorders. I know I was pretty much diagnosed with all of them back in the day, right? Like in 2007. And so in my journey to overcome my anxiety disorders, what I really realized is that we have our sympathetic nervous system, which maybe you've heard me talk about before, right? Think S for stress. That is our fight or flight response. So when we have anxiety, that's what's being activated. That's the part of our nervous system that is on, that is releasing the stress chemicals. Cortisol and adrenaline and 30 other stress chemical friends are being flooded into our blood. It is literally a flood in our blood of stress chemicals. And then P for peace, the parasympathetic nervous system, P for peace, rest and digest. So that's the other part of our nervous system, right? And so what we want to do is, this is our autonomic nervous system. So basically we're on an autonomic adventure here, right? Where we're moving from the sympathetic, where the anxiety is, to the parasympathetic, where the peace is, where the freedom from anxiety is. So it is literally, freedom from anxiety is talking about a journey from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. So remember, I don't know how much freedom you're going to get, which means I don't know how much time you're going to be able to live from your parasympathetic nervous system. That's going to depend on your past, what you've been through, the traumas you've endured, how healed you are in that journey, and how resolved you are in the things that you've been through. It's going to depend upon your genetics, like what's encoded in your genes. And then we get into epigenetics, right? What are your thoughts about these different things? That's going to activate and deactivate certain genes, right? And then also your neurology. Are you neurodivergent? Are you somebody who on the scale of how anxious some people are, you tend to be a more anxious person anyways, and that's just how you're made up. So no matter where you're at and why you are anxious and why you might have an anxious brain, there is the rewiring of it available for you from living predominantly in sympathetic, being sympathetic dominant, the stress, right? Over to P for peace, the parasympathetic. So that is the journey. And there are two strategies here in rewiring the anxious brain. Number one is to relax. And when I say relax, what I mean is to spend time in your daily life, preferably daily, but to have a practice of where you consciously and intentionally relax yourself. It's a daily thing, like brushing your teeth, getting dressed, taking a shower. This is not about being triggered, although it could be, but this is just about a daily practice, if you can, about relaxing yourself. So number one, relax, and number two, regulate. So regulate is something that we do when we're triggered. When we're triggered, we're dysregulated. Our sympathetic nervous system's been activated. We've been dumped with those stress chemicals. So our sympathetic nervous system has been activated. Our body has been flooded with those stress chemicals as a result of that. And then we feel dysregulated, right? We feel the chemicals. What we're feeling is adrenaline, cortisol, and 30 other stress chemical friends. The flood in our blood is the dysregulation. And then what we're going to do is regulate. We're going to recover from the stress chemical dump in our system. So that is also our work on this journey of rewiring from the anxious brain, to calm ourselves down in general, to have a general practice of relaxing ourselves, but also to regulate ourselves when we become dysregulated. And before I give you examples on exactly how to do this, I want to talk about something called allostatic load. So allostatic load is a way that we can think of as the burden of chronic stress. So everything that we've been through that it's accumulated. So like imagine like if something stressful happened in your life or something traumatic has happened in your life in your childhood or adulthood or whenever, and you didn't really address it, right? You swept it. This is a rug. You swept it under the rug. And like most humans do, right? No shame in the game here, but like most of us we don't want to address things or acknowledge things, or that could be a maladaptive coping strategy, right? So some stuff gets swept under the rug. We act like it didn't happen or it didn't matter, but really our nervous system took a hit of some sort. And so we accumulate this burden of stress of things, and it might not just be like an emotional stressor. It might be toxins in the environment. There might be different things that are going on that are stressing out our system. that lead to this burden of chronic stress. And so basically that we have a higher than normal set point. Normal for us, right? Our typical set point is higher of our stress set point. Another way to say this is our the allostatic load is our arousal set point. So how arousal is just another word for like stress or anxiety or the emotional stuff inside of us, right? So instead of, we used to not get triggered as often, now we get triggered more frequently because it is easier for us to go over that threshold now because we have a higher set point, a baseline of being triggered at. So we want to reduce that baseline. And what allostatic load actually means, and I'm getting a little technical here for the moment, but I really just want to explain this so you understand the freedom that's available to you. So if this used to be our baseline right here, and then we get stressed out and like our baseline raises because we have all this swept under the rug stuff, right? Or environmental stressors, they add up, accumulate in our system. Now our new arousal set points up here, the distance between these two, that's what's called allostatic load, the distance between where our baseline used to be and our new higher baseline. We can collapse that. That's called freedom. That's called like healing the anxious brain, right? Like we're no longer in this because it's more anxious when we have that burden of chronic stress inside. We're more likely to be anxious. So we want to collapse that. So that is a very, very real thing. It's called allostatic load. We want to collapse it. We want to have we want to have our homeostasis, our brain balancing itself out under a lower baseline, a lower threshold. So yes, there is freedom available to you. All right, let's dive into 5 ways to relax. Number 1, now keep in mind, some of these might not be relaxing for you, so you're gonna find your own way in some of this. I'm gonna give you some ways that work for me and some of my students. Number 1, yoga. Now, yoga's not always relaxing in the moment, but a lot of us feel relaxed afterwards. So that might be a great way to relax. Maybe it's not for you. Trust yourself. 2, time in nature, being out, going for a walk in nature or sitting in nature, sitting under a tree in nature, any sort of time where you're out in nature. I love watching birds fly. I love looking at trees. I love going for walks in nature. So any sort of way that if you find nature at all calming, then that would be a great way to go out and have it as your part of your relaxed practice. Number 3 could be petting a pet. So if you have a dog or a cat, maybe let's say you have a dog, for example, and just spending time on intentionally like having a practice where for 5 minutes every morning you rub your dog's belly and you're really present with your dog. And you know that that's not only your time to like love up on your pet, but it's also time for your deliberately like, actually in that point you'd be co-regulating with your dog, but it's a place for you to relax with your dog and just be very present in the moment and just, you know, like when I'm rubbing like my dog's belly, it's just like looking at her face and her smile and just being there, and the oxytocin is being released for both of us. And it's a very, very relaxing experience. Now, of course, if that's not relaxing for you, that's not part of your relaxing practice. 4, cuddling. If cuddling is relaxing to you, cuddling with a human, giving people hugs, hugging your special person if you have one, any sort of physical contact. Remember, you can hug yourself. We can do any sort of thing that's going to be relaxing for you. Go ahead and do it right now. Give yourself a big hug. You can even rub your shoulders and just notice where your hands are touching your body. Let's take a deep inhale and exhale. If your eyes were closed, go ahead and open them. So if that's something that's relaxing for you, that could be your practice. Number 5, progressive muscle relaxation is a great go-to as well. I will include a video down in the description or up above for progressive muscle relaxation. So that's something that you can do. It's a guided experience. If you have 10 minutes at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, you just listen to this video, you listen to the audio on it, you close your eyes and you go through and do a progressive muscle relaxation practice. And the beautiful thing about this is once you know how to do it, you don't need the guided experience. If you don't want it, you can actually do it on your own and just go through and guide yourself to relax everything. And that's a great way just to start relaxing your body. The way that I think about it with the relaxing, and now that we've talked about allostatic load, right, is that it's almost like chopping an axe on a tree. That's the best way I have thought of to describe this after my own personal experience and the students that I've been teaching this stuff to for over a decade, right? We chop at a tree. Each chop, it might seem like it's not making that much progress. It's all this effort. We're doing these chops and the tree is still standing. But eventually when we chop enough, what happens, right? Timber, the tree falls over. And so that's what I've noticed in my own experience and with a lot of my students is that we keep practicing these relaxing techniques. And at some point in time, timber, our allostatic load, that baseline gets lowered. We've rewired our anxious brain. We have a new set point that is lower. We've reduced the burden of chronic stress, or we've eliminated it. So my encouragement is to continue these relaxing practices, and over time you will reap the benefits, just like that axe on a tree. All right, now let's talk about 5 ways to regulate. So regulating is more in the moment when something's coming up. If you have been activated, you're feeling anxious in the moment, you're feeling stressed, you're feeling triggered, something is going on, and you actually want to regulate yourself because that stress chemicals are flooding through your body. So number 1, you know I'm going to say it, it is the breath. Use your breath, 3 breaths. I love the breath because it's there, it's always available, it's really easy to use, we got to do it anyways, and it's just being more deliberate about it, bring our intention into it, and using it in that slow, mindful way that actually turns on our parasympathetic nervous system and starts to calm us down. Number 2 for regulate is to count. Count to 10, count to 100. We're bringing our attention out of our emotional part of our brain and bringing it to the front of our brain. We're turning the prefrontal cortex back online, which is going to help calm us down. If you want to do like a bonus, you could breathe and count. So you're using multiple different parts of your system here. So you can inhale, count to 5 as you inhale, and then exhale, count to 5. Like in your mind's eye, let's inhale together, count to 5. Exhale, count to 5. And again, with these regulating techniques, whichever ones work best for you, the more that you have in your toolbox, so to speak, the more that you'll be able to reach for when you need them most. Number 3, maybe you've heard me talk about this before, shake it out, shake your body, get that energy moving, move your body around, jump up and down if you want to jump, if you want to do jumping jacks, if you just want to shake your hands, if you want to shake your hips, however you want to shake your body, just get that energy moving. So when we're dysregulated, when we want to regulate, what we're regulating is the stress chemicals that have gone through our system. We want to come back to calm, right? And so we want to, if we shake our body, we're moving them through. Not only are we moving them around, but we're also creating new biochemistry in our body. When we move around, we're creating some endorphins. We're creating some other feelings inside of our body that are going to help regulate us. 4, a mantra is a great way to regulate. I know for me, especially that first year that I was working on calming my anxious brain, my mind was racing so fast. It felt like I was in early sobriety. I just gotten sober. I just got off benzos. So I had a lot going on. And I had a million, it was like my brain was going so fast. It was hard to, I just had so much going on. And so for me, what really helped me regulate, like the breathing was okay, but like I think then what I really needed, especially if I was gonna try any sort of like mindfulness or meditation, I needed a mantra. I needed to literally give my brain other words to say so that I could stop it from thinking the anxious thoughts or the racing thoughts. If I gave myself a mantra like, may I be at peace, and I just kept saying, may I be at peace, may I be at peace, may I be at peace. And so as I'm walking around through my day, or as I'm trying to go to sleep, or as I'm feeling like super activated, right, and dysregulated, and I want to regulate, I would say something like, may I be at peace, may I be at peace. When my mind was racing, may I be at peace, may I be at peace. I'd say it in my mind, I wouldn't actually say it out loud. But so as I'm saying in my mind, may I be at peace, when I'm just kind of cruising through and I'm trying to regulate myself, like maybe I'm in a recovery meeting and I'm feeling stressed out, maybe I'm work and I'm feeling overwhelmed with something, maybe my boss is being a jerk and I'm feeling, whatever it is, whenever something is going on and I'm feeling dysregulated, because if I'm not, right, because if we have those racing thoughts, then what could happen in our head is like we fear getting fired, we fear what if it doesn't work out, whatever the anxious thoughts are. It's really hard for them to exist when I'm the one consciously and deliberately placing the words there, may I be at peace. And not only that, those are really beautiful words. It's a really beautiful intention for myself, which I think we all intend for ourselves, right? You intend for yourself, right? May I be at peace. Let's say it together. May I be at peace. May I be at peace. May I be at peace. If your eyes were closed like mine, go ahead and open them. And the last one for regulate is touch, is some sort of touch. Make it physical somehow. You could also use sight. What do you see? What do you smell? You can look around. What are two things I see? What are two things I hear? What are two things I smell? What are two things I can touch? So anything that you can make it physical. For me, touch works really well, right? Like if I rub my hands together, if I do something where I'm bringing my attention then into the actual sensation, I'm having a sensory experience. If I'm having a sensory experience, that's something that can only happen in the present moment. If I'm in the present moment having a sensory experience and feeling my fingers touch each other like this, I'm no longer thinking those anxious thoughts and flooding my body with more stress chemicals, creating more anxious feelings, which then loop back up and create more anxious thoughts. So I'm grounding myself in my senses. It's a way out of the anxious brain and to rewire myself more permanently, right, from the anxious brain. And really what we know that we're doing is we're collapsing the allostatic load over time. We're hitting, every time we do these relaxing or regulating techniques, it's like hitting that axe at a tree, and eventually that tree falls over and we have more freedom. We move more from being in our sympathetic nervous system, our anxious brain, and rewire it to be more in our parasympathetic nervous system and be living life more from that space, which is a more peaceful place to be. And that is freedom. It's been so great to have you in this video. I would love to hear from you in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.